Hello, thank you for being here with me. So I am back in Toronto, but I am not finished with my series on the Emirates and the Middle East. So today I want to talk about economic development and how we Westerners could take some pages from the book of the Emirates and the region of the Middle East. So my name is Peggy van der Plas. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. So maybe you know that if you've been reading and listening to me, I am passionate about economic development. So I'm a founding board member of Invest in Canada, which is a government arm's length organization, Canada, obviously, that promotes and attracts foreign direct investments into Canada. So think a large organization coming to set up in the country, creating job, investing. So that's what we were doing at Invest in Canada, attracting this big project. So maybe you've also read my views on Canadian pension funds and the need, I think the need they have to support better the Canadian economy, especially as a mandate, not as an afterthought. And when I talk about Canadian pension funds, I exclude the CDPQ, la Caisse des dépôts du Québec, because they're already doing an amazing job supporting Quebec's economy, which proves to us that it is possible to bring great returns and to support economic development. So, again, this is a topic that is very close to my mind. Maybe you know also that I tend to be globally minded. I just come back from a month in the Emirates. I'm leaving Sunday for Morocco. I'm from France. I live in Canada. I worked with many countries in the world. And, I like to think of myself as globally minded. Let's put it that way. But you're going to imagine my surprise when, as a good Westerner who always believes to have the right answers, I found in the Emirates exactly what I've been preaching for years: a coherent, deliberate, and deeply supportive economic development framework. And yes, the Emirates size, whether in population, but also in geography, and the wealth are quite different from, again, Canada, France, or the US, but many of the principles could absolutely apply anywhere. So let's talk about investment. So the sovereign wealth funds, they are located in Abu Dhabi. It's Abu Dhabi in the Emirates who has the oil. It's where the sovereign wealth funds are located. They are rich. They are very rich, let's be honest. But, like the days of Western bankers flying in to raise money and then flying out, managing it from New York, London, Zurich, of Hong Kong, these days are long gone. Like if you want to access local capital now, there are, strings attached, and I would say logical strings attached. You must contribute to the country's economic development. You're not just coming asking for a check of the sovereign wealth funds and leaving back to your country. So if you don't have a local office, you're not going to get money. You're not going to get an investment. You're not going to get capital. And by local office, I don't mean a PO box. I mean a real local footprint that creates value and that creates jobs on the ground. And this is true for, investment funds that are coming, to raise capital in order to deploy. But the same logic applies if a company wants to do business with the government or with state-owned enterprises. A local presence is required. And you know what? It seems quite reasonable to me. This is public money we're talking about. There should be conditions around economic impact. Resources are not infinite, and capital should be allocated with long-term prosperity in mind. So why don't we see these requirements in Western economies? I'm going to say hello, Canada here. Are our economies so robust that economic development is treated as a nice to have rather than a strategic pillar? So, if I look today at the dismal position of the Canadian economy, I can't help but wish we had that kind of foresight, or at least the discipline to stop shooting ourselves in the foot by being so undemanding in how we allocate capital. So that is the first part that I was very, very impressed by how strategic the Emirates do that. Saudi does that as well. And it's something that I believe we should absolutely, absolutely emulate. The second thing is Emiratization. So what is Emiratization? So it's a government initiative from the UAE, from the Emirates, to promote the employment of Emirati citizens across, the public and private sector. So the goal is really to increase local participation in the workforce, build national talent, and ensure that the citizens contribute to and benefit from the country's prosperity. So maybe some might view this as nationalism or even, exclusionary, but I would really ask you to think again through the lens of economic development and national prosperity. It is not about preventing foreigners from working or holding senior positions. After all, 90% of the UAE population is expatriate. So that's definitely not the case. But it's really about ensuring that locals have opportunities, that income circulates within the country, and that the domestic economy benefits from the multiplier effect of local employment. So I want to contrast that with remittances. So what are remittances? So remittances refer to the money that are sent by foreign workers back to their families abroad. So they are vital for many countries, but they also represent leakage from the host economy. If I'm coming from France, working in Canada, and I send 50% of my income to France, obviously this income is lost in terms of economic development here in Canada. Great for France, not great for Canada. So when you have obviously a significant share of income leaving the country, that money is not spent locally, it is not invested locally, it reduces domestic growth, it reduces domestic demand. So if I take the example of Canada, so in 2023, so a couple of years ago, over $11 billion Canadian dollar were sent abroad as remittances. And that is an equivalent to about 0.5% of GDP, so half a percentage of GDP. To give you some context, Canada's GDP growth in 2025 is projected to be between 1% and 1.25%. So needless to say that that missing 0.5% would be quite welcome. So, and yes, when the economy is booming, like these outflows don't matter as much, but booms don't last forever. And I mean, we know that it's economic cycle. It's not brain surgery here. And, prudent growth management means that planning for the good times and the bad. So how does Emiratization work? Well, the locals are trained, they're upskilled, and that is creating sustainable job opportunities for Emirati nationals over the long term. Again, this is not racial preference, it is strategic economic design. So I've always been super puzzled. I've been in Canada 22 years now. When I see Canadian pension funds or even like financial institutions, I work at banks, constantly hiring, Americans or Brits for top positions, like very senior roles that tons of Canadians could fill. And those high salaries could circulate within our own economy and also building a stronger domestic talent pipeline. But that's not what we're doing. And again, this isn't about nationalism. I'm an immigrant myself. That's not what I'm talking about. It's really about thoughtful governance and understanding how decisions that affect the long-term prosperity of all citizens, regardless of race and origin, once again. So the Emirates really reminded me that economic development is not accidental. It's engineered through intention, through consistency, through accountability. And I mean, Canada could definitely use a bit more of that discipline. And in this difficult time, I think we would all appreciate that very much if it was the case. So if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to send me an email or a text or a comment, whatever is your favorite mean of communication. You can also try a pigeon carrier. I think it's very relaxing, apparently. And you also can subscribe if you don't want to miss any of these editions. And if you're very interested by what's happening in the Gulf, and you should be, check out my previous podcast and my future podcast. So thank you again for being here. Again, my name is Peggy van der Plage, and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.